Welcome to Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard, where we empower you to heal your pain on every level of your being, body, mind, spirit. Our show is about sharing solutions for creating the life you want. We invite you to stand up and choose a life of health, happiness, and joy. And we're here to show you how. This is Convergence Healing.
Okay, hey everybody! I am so happy to have you here. I am thrilled to have you here. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm super excited that you're tuning in. This is Peter Bedard of the Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard podcast. That is me, Boom Chakalaka, and I have a wonderful guest with us today, Anne Fernandez. And Anne, you actually are only known to me as Anne Fernandez, and I had to look for your book, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and there's a whole other name that I didn't even know was yours. So we're going to touch base on that. But before we begin, Anne is someone that I really admire. You know, I'm all about bringing women into their goddess energy. And we need more women. We need more goddess standing up into the world and changing the world and finding their voice and speaking their truth. And Anne is somebody who's been doing that and is doing that. She's an author as well as a healer. And she has a new book out called Moonlight Pon Wire. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is that correct?
That's
Moonlight
correct.
Pon Wire? Okay.
Instead of a pawn, it's Pon Wire. It's
Moonlight Pon Wire.
It's a West Indian slang, man.
I
Come on.
love that. So that's awesome. So we're going to get into the book in a moment, but as I like to start with my guest, I like to share a quote that inspired me or that I felt related in my understanding about who they are. It's almost like I take some time to sort of meditate on them, and I do a little search online in my meditation to find a quote that resonates with me for them. So this is the quote that I picked for Anne. All right. This quote comes from one of my heroes, Brian Weiss. And Brian says, "Come from the heart, the true heart, not the head. When in doubt, choose the heart. This does not mean to deny your own experiences and that which you have empirically learned through the years. It means to trust yourself to integrate intuition and experience. There is a balance, a harmony to be nurtured between the head and the heart. When the intuition rings clear and true, loving impulses are favored."
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful?
That is beautiful.
And
Thank
that
you.
resonated for me about who you are as a person, as an author, as a healer. And coming from the heart is somebody that I think is how I perceive you. Mm-hmm. And, we just had a guest on previously, and we were talking about, a couple of guests ago, we were talking about women and stepping into that goddess nature and stepping into your own true voice and speaking your own true voice, right? And that has to do with intuition. It has to do with coming from the heart. And you're doing that. You're actively doing that in this experience of, this is your first book, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So everybody, I want you to tune in and listen to the beautiful Anne Fernandez, who's across from me right now, and take it away. Tell us about this story and tell us about this name that I didn't even know.
Well, actually, there's probably two names you discovered. One on the cover of the book. Mm-hmm. So my first name is Yasmin, which was given to me by my father because my father came from India and moved to the Caribbean, and my mother came from England, and so she gave me the name Anne. So therefore, Yasmin Anne. And then I actually kept my married name. I've been divorced, but I kept my married name, Fernandez. Mm-hmm. But inside the book, you probably saw the name Sheba, which is what a lot of people still call me. The funny thing is when I hear that name, I always look around like, what did I do?
Oh, is that like my mom would say, Peter Albert, right?
Right,
The
exactly.
middle name type of thing.
Exactly.
So Sheba is your disciplinary name?
Sheba was when my mother got upset with me, I would hear that name loud and clear. So when I first came to the States, I was born in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, and in a small village, actually. And my family uprooted and came to the U.S. back in 1968. Mm-hmm. Yikes.
Wow, what a tumultuous year to come to the United States.
I know.
That was the year that I think RFK was Was it JFK or RFK? One of them was assassinated that year.
It was right around
and
that
there were
time.
riots and all
Yep.
kinds of stuff happening. That's a tumultuous year.
It was. But here we were, thrown into this culture, and I had this heavy accent, and smiling at everyone like we do on the islands. And it's like, hey, man, how you doing, man? And they look at me like, what? What are you? And then when I said my name was Yasmin, of course, it was, can you spell that? How do you say that? So I said, it's Anne. And Anne stuck.
Anne
so
stuck,
Anyway, so I just use Anne. But
So you grew up being called Yasmin or Sheba?
Sheba mostly, yes.
Sheba mostly.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, it was the
interesting.
gentle Sheba, and then it was Sheba, you're in trouble.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you have a book that's really about these experiences, this journey of being this child coming from a small, tiny town, right, out in
Yes.
the middle of the ocean, right,
Yes,
into the
yes.
tumultuous United States.
Yes.
Was there culture shock for you?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Major culture shock. Not just the language, but not really having been exposed to any technology, TV, all that stuff. So I didn't know much about the country.
Mm-hmm.
And to just go back a little bit to how we ended up here, my mother was born and raised in England. So she came from a well-off family and came to the islands on vacation and met my father, whose family came from India. And he grew up in, great poverty there, working in the sugarcane fields and driving a taxi. So he picked her up in his taxi, and she never left.
Wow, what a great story.
So my mother moved to a small village with my father and gave up everything else that she had. And her family disowned her, too, because she married this poor Indian man. And that was a no-no back then, So anyway, she grew up in the small village, and because she still had some experience of having been in another country, when we got to be a certain age, she realized that if we stayed where we were, that as far as education and all of that, we wouldn't have a great opportunity. So basically, I would end up working in the sugarcane fields and having lots of children. And she was smart enough to know that she had to make some kind of a move. But it was very difficult for her to get my father to agree to that, because this was all he knew. This was his life, So being the strong woman she was, she convinced him that was a good idea and actually applied to England and to America. And they thought, no way, we're not going to America, So anyway, when the information came, the letter came, and we sold the house, packed everything up, 5 kids, mom and dad, Miami Airport, 1968. And my biggest memory there was I'm smiling at everyone, and people just looked at me like there was something wrong with me, because I had this big grin on my face. And I started crying, and I said, I want to go home. Nobody here smiles at you. And of course, my mom, being that she just kind of rubs my head, and it'll be okay, Sheba. Don't worry, it'll be okay, But that was my first step into the U.S., smiling and not having that reciprocated,
Right.
Yeah, so, and then the experience of actually living in a one-room motel. I mean, it's where we started our life in downtown Miami, living in one room and cooking over the toilet in a camping stove, and everyone sleeping on the floor in mattresses. And that was life in the U.S. But I must say that I never for one moment felt like I was poor, like I didn't have enough, because we were together. We were together as a family. We were a unit, and we all supported each other. Plus, it was an adventure. Here we are in a new place, with all these opportunities. So that's how I chose to look at it. And that has stayed with me most of my life.
That's an important attitude.
It really is, and it's one of the things that I do tell my clients. I said, look, we have a choice. Every single day we have a choice when we wake up. Is the cup half full or half empty? You get to choose. Be in gratitude for all the things you do have, instead of focusing on the things you don't have. And that sounds really simple, but it's true, it works, it really creates more gratitude when we can do that.
Absolutely. Something that I want to institute in my life that I haven't yet done quite yet is what I ask my clients to do, so, hey, it's time for me to practice what I preach. But establishing a gratitude box. I really like that idea of a gratitude box where every day you just write down something and put it into the box that you're grateful for. And you're consciously taking that time. I'm doing that every day, but I need to do it more consciously in my life, where I need to actually be stopping, writing it down instead of just, there's that thought and then moving on, right? It's that time to process it, then to put it in the box. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that because, and it's one of the things we can talk about later about writing things down.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is such a powerful tool because we're running around doing 20 million things and we have these amazing thoughts that come in, but if we don't put them down, like you said, they're just gone. But also by writing it down, you're giving it some power. You're giving it almost like a physical energy.
Yeah.
So taking that idea and writing it down and putting it in a box, you just add more energy and more power to it. So I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I might start doing that myself.
Gratitude boxes are fun. I've had people bring them into me, and they will decorate them. They'll just take an old shoebox and wrap it with paper or whatever, and then they'll decorate it and draw words on it or paint it or whatever they do with it. And then some people I know will even make a sort of ceremony about it at the end of the year.
Right.
And they'll sit down, and normally it's with a glass of wine, and they'll sit down either with themselves or their partner, and they'll actually go through all the things that they were grateful for as a way to close out the year and to bring in the next year. And I love that idea. I think that's just an awesome way to recap an experience and to bring that gratitude forward.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's a little tip that everybody could do that's not even part of our whole thing. That's just a spontaneous tip.
Right.
Our tagline for the show is Healing Talk Solutions for Creating a Joyous Life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really one of the ways that people can do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. May I touch on that for just a second?
Yeah, please.
A little bit more. I wanted to say that, we talk about meditation, all these different tools that are amazing, that are wonderful. And there's hundreds of ways now that people can meditate. There are all these things online. There's, you can sit like a yogi. You can wash dishes while you're meditating.
Yeah, there's no right way.
There's no right way, and this is what I try to tell people. And the whole gratitude thing we just talked about, I think is a quick, simple, easy way to meditate. I mean, when you can open your eyes in the morning and the first thing you can say is, I am in gratitude for taking this breath, for waking up, for stepping out of my bed. As you say that, it just shifts your whole energy and changes your whole day. And doing that for about 30 seconds can be a meditation.
It is a meditation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So great. Thank you for throwing that out there. And I really appreciate that emphasis that there is no right way. I like to read studies here and there, and there's these studies that they've tried to do on different forms of meditation. And everybody who teaches meditation thinks that, not everybody, but the majority of people who teach meditation think that they know the right way to meditate.
Right.
And every study that comes out on meditation has shown that there is no right way.
That's right.
That, you could be doing, the meditating with the Catholics and the rosary beads,
That's
or you
right.
could be meditating with, the Punjabis up on a mountain, or you could be meditating with, your cat in the backyard.
Absolutely.
And you could be laying down, or you could be sitting up, or you could hold your hands in a mudra, or you could meditate on a chant or a phrase or a movement or whatever it is. There's so many ways to do it. And every study has shown that it doesn't matter how you do it, but the meditation itself will actually, what they call, thicken the brain, I believe.
Right.
And it will make your brain actually 20% and increase the mass of your brain by regular meditation. And that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
That there's actually a physical
Yes.
experience that happens from doing a mental practice.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I heard something a long time ago, and if I remember it correctly, I believe when you meditate that both halves of the brain, the right and left side, sort of bridge and come together, so there's more of a wholeness rather than a separation.
Well, I know the feeling of that is, at least for me, that's very much a feeling that I get,
Right.
where it's balancing out the two, that logical and the creative.
Right.
There's that consensus that comes in. So it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yep,
Wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, talk to us a little bit about your book with the title. What is that? I mean, I had a difficult time. I didn't know how to pronounce it, but now that you said a pawn, it's pawn, right?
Right.
So Moonlight Pon Wire. Why wire?
So, where I grew up, we didn't have electricity for a long time. We didn't have water, so I had to bring buckets of water on my head.
That was your job.
That was my job. I had to go down to the river and get mud. I had to, there's a chapter in my book called Cow Dung and Spirituality. I had to sit under the rear end of this cow and catch the dung, if you will,
Yeah.
mix it with the mud
Right.
and the water,
Yeah.
and that's what I'd patch up our house with. So, doing all these things, a lot of people might look at as like, wow, that must have been hard, you were so poor and it's difficult. There was not one moment when I thought of that because we didn't have all these other things to relate it to. We didn't have the malls, we didn't have the TV, so this was it. This was what life was, and you just zoned in and focused on what you had to get done and accomplish.
And I bet you could build some pretty cool houses.
I could. And I'm actually considering working with some people to do that now because now it's supposed to be a better way.
Yeah, well,
to-
there's a huge movement for
Yes.
Going back to Adobe or Hay Barrel or housing
Absolutely.
and that type of stuff. So yeah, I think
Absolutely. Yep,
that's
yep.
great, and you're an expert at it. You've been doing it since you were a kid.
Yep, absolutely. And so Moonlight Pon Wire came when we first got electricity. And so if you can, visualize the local folks looking at the lights hanging on the wire, and they would say, "Look, Moonlight Pon Wire," with the local slang, and hence the name. So that's where it came from.
Right. What inspired you to share your story?
Really, well, this book, I felt honestly was a download. I felt like something opened up, and I started writing one day and never stopped till I was finished. And for 2 weeks, I didn't even look at it. I just didn't, because I've always written
You
short
wrote
stories.
this in one sitting?
Well, every day for about 2-3 hours.
Wow.
So it took me about maybe 3 months total time.
That's very quick for writing a book.
Right, I know. And, for years I thought it'd be nice to write a book one day and you'd scribble down thoughts and ideas here and there. But, never around to it, kind of thing, never getting around to it.
Eventually I'll get
Right,
that. Yeah.
right. And I've had a lot of poetry and a lot of short articles, published, but never the book. And I was actually having a major flare-up with rheumatoid arthritis and some other physical things I'm dealing with. And it was through that process. I mean, I remember sitting on the couch, my computer's there, and I'm feeling sorry for myself and, feeling like a victim and woe is me and that whole thing. And even though I teach my own clients, to meditate, to breathe and go through it, this was one day when everything else was so overwhelming. I just sat there and couldn't do anything to help myself. And finally, I just started writing. I literally opened that computer and I started writing. And everything just started flowing. And as that was happening, interestingly enough, I could feel some of the pain dissipating. Things started to slough away. And
But that's not an accident, right? That's not a surprise.
I know. Absolutely. So really, actually, that is how the book came about. I mean, it was a download.
And very interesting. So I always look at pain as being a calling,
Yes.
right? That pain is,
Yes.
we can either hear the calling that the pain has to share with us,
Right.
or we can be overwhelmed by the pain.
Absolutely.
And your pain called you to be an author. This is
Yes.
your first full book, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
I know you mentioned that you had done some writing before, but this is your first authorship.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing.
It reminds me, as you said, things can be overwhelming, but the message, the lesson, the calling, if you will, it just triggered a thought that I had of when I was growing up, when I was a child, and we'd go to the ocean, in the Caribbean. We had some big waves, and I did put that in my book too. And I remember I would stand up and allow the waves to just hit me, and of course I'd fall down each time, And finally, one day, my aunt, who was on the beach looking at me, she said, Sheba, if you would just dive into the wave when it came at you, you will come out on the other side. and with her accent, right? And so I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to try that. And I actually dove into the wave, and I was like, hey, this is much better than being, slammed in the face.
Right.
And that became a metaphor for the rest of my life. Because there's always that tendency for us to want to fight something and push it away and struggle with it.
Yeah, you know what? I want to talk about that a little bit more because I know your work addresses part of that too.
Yes.
So let's take a moment and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. You can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. Okay, hey everybody, we are back for another wonderful episode of the Convergence Healing Podcast, Healing Talk Solutions for Creating a Joyous Life. And I'm sitting down with the amazing Yasmin and Fernandez. And I love that name, Yasmin, by the way.
Thank you.
I think it's a beautiful name.
You can call me
You
Yasmin.
spell it with a Y.
Yes.
I'm used to it spelling with a J,
With a
the
J,
spelling
yes.
with a J.
Yes.
Yeah, but what a beautiful name.
you.
Visually, it looks even prettier with a Y.
Well, thank you.
That Y is awesome.
you.
So, now before we went to our break, we were talking about the experience of instead of letting life smack you in the face, right?
Right.
Those waves,
Right.
jumping through the waves, right?
Right.
And in a way, that's a metaphor for being part of the flow,
Right.
right? And so working with life instead of against life.
Absolutely.
I love that concept, and you said that was something you learned early on, and it's something you've consciously practiced the majority of your life.
Right.
Somebody that we as a human quality tend to sort of be that person that stands up and lets life kick us, right? Good, hit me again,
Right.
right? Instead of learning to actually go through or with the flow of life, right?
Right.
There's something about us that just says, I want it my way, and it's going to be this way, and this is how I'm going to do it, and life comes in and teaches us otherwise.
Yes.
How do you, when you have people that are like that, and I've been in that place in my life too, trying to control it or force it to be how I want it to be, right? When that happens, how do you work with people, or even in your own personal situation?
Well, both in my own personal situation and then passing this on to my own clients too. I want to just back up and say that I feel like we were all taught as kids, to be competitive. And if you're that strong, competitive person out there and you can be strong and tough and get out there and fight, then yay, you're a great person and everyone cheers you on. If you're that person who, might cry or show emotion or some feelings about something because you're moving through something, people didn't recognize that.
Right, that wasn't allowed.
Right. So I think we all grew up with that, idea. And at some point we had to learn that, wait a minute, I've been struggling and fighting and pushing my whole life, and where has it gotten me? I'm still dealing with the same issues. So moving through something, if you think about it in terms of energy likes to flow and likes to move freely. It's like doing a dance, and when you're out of step and you're dancing, it feels awkward. It looks awkward as well. But when you can learn to go with this rhythm and this flow, with this energy, it moves you along. And it creates balance, it creates healing, it creates so many things. And it is just the way I've found for myself to move in my life. And I'm not saying that I've got it down. I mean, trust me, I have my moments when I get up, and I do have a flare-up once in a while, and, I get angry, and I'm pissed off. And I'm like,
me too.
Why me? Come on, I'm doing all this stuff.
But what do you do to get yourself back in the flow?
Okay, so that's when, I have my little mantras, and one of my favorites is it is what it is. Because you have to get yourself from that place.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That one works for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, because you have to first get yourself from that angst and that feeling and that space you're in. And sometimes, just sitting and meditating doesn't quite do it. So you've got to take the steps to get there.
Yeah.
So
the essence of that saying, it is what it is,
Right.
is really the word acceptance.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so that's, for me, that's my mantra. I start out with that, and I keep saying it until I finally get it. Because that's the interesting thing, is that we're all intelligent human beings. We get all these things cerebrally, but to really have it go deep down inside and really know it and feel it and access it at a deep level is a different story, you know? So I start out with the mantra, it is what it is, and then I can get myself to a place where I can, you know, sit in my meditation and go within. And that going within is doing exactly that. It's like, yes, I need to go in, not push, not force, not go around. I need to go in and move myself through whatever it is I'm dealing with.
Right. Yeah, that always brings me to my favorite Rumi quote, the cure for the pain is in the pain.
That's right.
Right? And
Yes.
so going in is actually going into the pain.
Right.
Right? There's that thing that you're resisting, moving into that experience of acceptance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And people have this weird thing, you know, acceptance can be, it can have a couple different meanings because, like, I know a lot of people when I talk about that, you know, the hot topic today and, you know, for quite a while now has been accepting where our political system is, right? And people have this pain around that. And the resistance is part of what I perceive as causing the pain. But they think that if they accept it, that means that they're approving of it. Right? And I know on a personal physical level, when I'm addressing my pain and I move into that experience of it is what it is, it's here, I'm acknowledging it, I accept it, that doesn't mean that I'm going to keep allowing that to happen.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
People have this idea that acceptance means that they're condoning or supporting.
Right.
Let's say they're supporting the pain.
Right.
And no, that's not, I want to be really clear
Yes,
with that.
absolutely.
When you move into acceptance, into that understanding of it is what it is,
Right.
it is just, it's like that. I love that old TV show. Like, you're from the back of the day. Nobody listening is probably going to get it, but Dragnet, right? You had,
Oh, yeah.
you
that.
got it, right? It's the statement of just the facts, ma'am, right?
That's right.
Just the
Yes.
facts, ma'am.
I know. I love that.
And that makes me laugh, and it brings me
Right.
to that experience of, you know, just the facts, ma'am.
Right.
The acceptance is just the facts,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
The facts are, this is what our world is. This
Yes.
is where we are right now. This is
Right.
where I am in my body. This
Right.
is my state of health, wellness, spirituality, well-being, whatever it is. Just the facts. Okay, now I can do something about that,
That's right.
right?
Yes.
Now I can actually, I could step into a position of being the authority in my life, and I could say, I am going to do something to heal the arthritis. I'm going to do
Right.
something to heal the pain,
Right.
right? I know what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
And now I'm moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big thing. So,
Thank you for saying that. That is so true. Because when I've mentioned that to my clients too, what do you mean accept?
yeah,
I have to take this? No, I don't want this.
right. And it's like, yes,
Yes.
you do have to. And
Right.
I recognize you don't
Exactly.
want that, and that's good.
Right.
I'm glad you don't want that.
Right.
But accepting it doesn't mean that you have to keep it.
Right. Accepting it just allows you to move into it, to understand it, to now begin to sort of, you know, go down that path of recognizing maybe it's something emotional that is triggering the pain. You know, maybe
Absolutely.
it's something from your past. Maybe it's your beliefs. And as you know, Peter, hypnotherapy is like my number one thing. I mean,
Right.
we are what we believe.
Yes.
You know, change your thoughts, change your life, you know, all of those things. And so I think through that acceptance, that it allows you to open that door and to now travel down that path of getting more information, you know, at a deeper level as to what might have caused or brought you to this point.
Right.
Because there's so much more that's happened than just that physical pain. That's just sort of the outcome,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know?
And I've seen people who really became, who finally surrendered in a way to the acceptance of their life,
Right.
of where they are.
Yes.
And the moment they did that, they were able to sort of overcome some of the most horrible restrictions.
Yes.
You know, I've seen people go from absolute pain to complete wellness, and to go from
Yes.
absolute poverty to wealth. You know, it's an amazing experience to
Yes.
witness that in people and changing your beliefs about the world, about life,
Right.
about how you are perceived, right?
Yes.
Accepting the circumstances and now doing something about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back in a moment. Stay tuned, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. You can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. All right, my people, we are back again with a continuation of our interview with the author, Yasmin Ann Fernandez. I have to correct myself there, because when you look for the book, if you look for it under Ann Fernandez, you won't find it. You'll find it, but you won't know that it's Yasmin. That's what I did the first time. I looked for the book with Ann Fernandez, and then I had to go back and figure out that Ann Fernandez is actually Yasmin Ann Fernandez. So check out her book, Moonlight Pon Wire. It's a lovely book. It's actually getting some wonderful reviews. You can find it on Amazon. And we're going to spend a few more minutes speaking with Yasmin, Sheba Ann,
Yeah.
all of the above. And before we took our break, we were talking about this idea of acceptance, right? And that acceptance doesn't mean that you're allowing that thing or whatever it is to continue. It means that you're accepting the circumstances so that you can actually do something in creating change. You can actually move forward instead of having to always fight off
Right.
this thing that you're trying to not accept.
Right.
And in applying that to health, you had an interesting experience, right? With how you were in a lot of pain. And when you actually finally sat down to do what the pain was calling you to do, you felt that all of the soreness in your joints, I'm guessing, just sort of disappear.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about that. How do you think that happens?
Well, one thing I've over the years of having experiences and doing the fighting, it's almost like we're still functioning from, caveman type mentality, fight or flight, right?
Mhm. Well, we fight for our pain all the time.
Right.
I get clients that sit in my chair that tell me they want to heal, but
Right.
then will tell me every reason why they can't.
Right, exactly, exactly. And so I found that as I was sitting there and doing that exact same thing, why me, why me, why me, the questioning and feeling the angst, something opened up inside. When I said, why me? It's almost like I put the question out there and the universe said, okay, I'll give you the answer if you're willing to listen. We've been trying to get you to write. You need to get this information out there. And now that I think about it, Peter, and I think I did put this in the book, for years, even when I was much younger and married and raising children, I would wake up about 3 a.m. every single night, and I could not go back to sleep. And I would sit there and say, I need sleep, I need sleep. And then this sort of inner voice would say, well, just write.
Mm-hmm.
And I always argue with those voices. It's like,
Right.
it's like, well, what do you mean? I'm not a writer. I write poetry. Okay, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, just write something. Just write. So I would start scribbling down little things, like a little poem here or there, or just writing some stuff down.
Yeah.
And so as I think back, it was always this push to write, to get information out there, to get this, the stuff that people need, to help them heal holistically.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I finally started to go into writing the book, as you were saying earlier, that's when I started to notice this shift, and I knew I was walking the path.
Right.
So I think you also mentioned this earlier, but I really feel that sometimes the hardest challenges we have, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, whatever it is going on in our lives, there's always a message. There's always a door waiting to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we can open that door is through acceptance.
Yeah.
When we go into acceptance and we can listen for the messages and the information, it comes to us. It's there.
Yeah.
Because the universe wants us to win. The universe wants us to be healthy and happy people.
I agree. Absolutely. I'm always saying the universe is waiting to rise up and say yes to whatever we offer
Right.
to it.
Exactly.
And if we're offering to the universe pain and guilt and shame, and the universe just says, yes, you are that.
Right.
Right. And when we
Exactly.
can step into our own self, right,
Right.
and say, I'm offering my book and my wisdom and my healing and my power and my strength, the universe rises up and says yes to
That's
that.
right.
The
Exactly.
universe isn't this, there's this idea that in a way, that the universe loves other people more than
Right.
right? So that when you plant a seed, I always like to look at it as the idea of, you're planting a seed or creating something, right? When you
Absolutely.
put it into the soil of the universe doesn't say, oh, I like this seed better than that seed. This seed is from the chosen people. That seed isn't, The universe doesn't do that. The universe just grows the seed.
Exactly.
That's what it does. It takes what you plant and it nurtures it and grows it. That's what the universe knows how to do.
Absolutely. Yes.
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 And so when we stop resisting, I'm always amazed in my own personal life and just a curiosity in the world of, I wonder how much disease, like what would the percentage be? I have no idea how to measure that. But I wonder how much disease is actually simply just resistance.
Oh, yeah. Good question.
I wonder how much
Good
disease,
question,
right,
yes.
is just
Yes.
is just us denying
Right.
something, not accepting something, shoving something down, right? Not allowing ourselves to have our power, our voice, making ourselves small, keeping ourselves in shame.
Yes.
I wonder how much dis-ease
Right.
is caused by this denial of our greatness.
As you know, Peter, I love nature. I love being in nature because I grew up with nature. I mean, it was my temple.
Yeah,
If you will.
absolutely. You were in it.
Yes, and so
We all are, but it was
Yes.
it was right there for you.
But because we live in our cities, we live in our places, we sort of separate ourselves from all of that. However, that's one of the things I do, and I've had some clients that I've taken out into nature as well.
Yeah.
And we just do an observation and just being quiet. As you look around, you notice that nature, the natural rhythm that is there, it doesn't resist. I
Nope.
mean, when there's a storm or a big wind, the tree bends with it, becomes flexible.
Absolutely.
All of the different things that happens in nature, it doesn't fight or resist. It goes with the flow.
Yeah, and you know what? That brings us to you have a bunch of tips for us, right?
Yes,
And
I do.
that brings us actually to, I think, one of your tips. Yeah, so I always like people to bring in tips, not only from a therapeutic point of view, but for themselves, right? Like what can people actively do right now? Because I want all of our listeners to go and try out all these different therapists and try out all these different things, but some of us don't have all the money that we can to go do those things, yeah? And so I like to give people practical things that they can incorporate in their lives right now, right in this moment, like that gratitude box earlier,
Yes.
right? Things that people can do to make a difference for themselves in a positive and loving way.
Right.
And you have some great tips. So talk to us a little bit about, I know that was your tip on spirituality that you had, right? And so one part of it is nature. But give us some more information about that.
So that's one of the things that I, refer to my clients because, like you said, Peter, it's true. Like there are a lot of things out there we can do, and sometimes people don't have the opportunity, to take a trip to some beautiful island somewhere, like Trinidad. However, sometimes just finding a tree, walking along the sidewalk, seeing a tree somewhere, even in a village, near wherever you live, even having plants in your home.
Right.
Having a little small fountain with some plants, just creating a little nature space around that can be so inexpensive. That can trigger the idea of being connected, and being in nature. So
Yeah, free.
You don't,
You just go outside.
exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now,
And-
what's somebody supposed to do though? Because let's say you have somebody who's in pain, and they're right now. Oh yeah, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to look at a tree. Okay, great. I'm looking at a tree. Right. I know some of my clients would talk to me with that way. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm
And so-
looking at a tree. All right, and what am I supposed to do now? Right. What would you say to them?
Okay, and some of my clients do that too. Like, really? What do you mean? I'm looking at the tree, right? And so one of the things is to look, yes, to exactly do that. Look at the tree. is there some similarity? Can you see how your feet might be like the roots of the tree as your toes spread out on the ground? Feel the ground beneath your feet. Look at the trunk of the tree. Does that remind you or feel like your spine supporting you? Your hands like the branches, look at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
It reminds you of, your crown, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at everything in nature. There's something in nature that reminds me of me, because the truth is, we're not separated from nature. We are connected.
Right. No, we
all
are
part of
nature. We are part of nature.
We
So
are
we only have a
nature.
few minutes left, but tell us what are some of your tips that people can go do?
Well, first of all, I must say that it has to be holistic. You cannot heal without doing it holistically, which means you have to include physical, emotional, and spiritual.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And so, we might attack, things physically, but if we're not taking care of the emotions and the spiritual aspect of it, then we only get a little part of that healing. So it's got to be holistic. And I would say, like, for the physical part, you've got to have some kind of movement. Our bodies are made to move, whether you dance, you swim, you walk, the way we eat, the stuff we put into our bodies is important as well. On the emotional aspect, we have to try and make that connection between the emotion that's causing the pain or the disease, because there always is. I always find as we start going down that road, there's always something emotionally, something from our past that is connected to what's causing the physical pain. And so my go-to things are hypnotherapy, journaling, meditation, all of those things. And like I said, actually, I would like to end with one thing, Peter.
What's that?
A sense of humor. A sense of humor helped me through so much in my life.
Right.
And when I can find, so sometimes I'll just listen to comedy or I'll think about.
Laughter is amazing. We did an episode previously, so if you're tuning in and you want to understand how laughter works, we have an episode we did with Sebastian Gendry on laughter yoga and then laughter therapy. So I love that. That I find that in my life, laughter is really important, and the more I can play and be silly, the happier I am.
Yes.
So, yeah.
There's a Native American saying I heard years ago, and I love a part of that culture because the connection to the earth. And basically it said that to be a whole person, to be complete, and to have joy in your life, you must be the male, the female, the adult, and the child. And when you can participate in all those aspects, then you have wholeness and completeness and joy.
Beautiful. And that's a great note to end our discussion. Thank you so much for calling it out in that way. I appreciate that ability to balance the selves within us. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. We once again say thank you to our amazing guest, the beautiful Yasmin and Fernandez. Check out our book at Moonlight Pon Wire. You can find on Amazon. And find us, share us, and let us know how you're doing. We love you, and make it a beautiful life, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.